David Locke's weekly interview brought to you by the Murdoch Auto Team. David, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. We're still in Dallas. We're heading to Houston this afternoon. Everything's good. A little March Madness going on, but I have to admit I didn't watch a bunch of it. Women's tournament starts here, which I actually fall in the group that I somehow think I'm more intrigued by the women's tournament than the men's tournament this year.
I bet you would have been intrigued watching Kentucky get beat by Oakland.
Well, my wife was remember my wife was a reporter in Lexington for a long time, or a few years, and so that's still very close to our family's kind of. We touch on that all the time. Keep an eye on it. It's pretty. That's not allowed down there. We have no idea what that's like being in Salt Lake City. That's different level there.
They aren't happy this morning.
No, it's like it's birthright kind of stuff.
Yep.
That's like you're born into Kentucky blue, and then it's really part of who you are.
The Utah Jazz seem to have fallen into a little bit of a pattern here, David. They have spent the last week competing pretty solidly for three quarters, and then the fourth quarter tends to get away in a hurry. Should I just chalk that up to the young guys when the intensity of the game ratchets up late? There's just too many young players on the court who don't know exactly how to excel in that moment?
Probably. I would characterize it a little more vaguely than you did. I think they've competed really hard, and then they're having extended stretches of struggles at some point in time that are the difference in the game. So I thought it was, the opening first and third quarter the other night. Last night I thought it was the second quarter, or portions of it. And so there's spikes during the game where the game's getting away from them. And I thought Will, said, hey, our goal would be to have, you're going to have 6 bad minutes, 5 bad, whatever. You're not going to play 48 minutes, but can we find a way to have them be 1 minute at a time rather than having them be, 6 consecutive minutes, right? So last night the game gets into double figures by halftime, and I think it may have gone under double figures at some point, but I don't think so. Maybe for a brief moment late in the third, we got down to about 7 and made a rally. But, then you're just spending a lot of the night playing from behind. And I think that's the same thing in Oklahoma, but I thought it was a start in Oklahoma. I thought our starters just didn't play with a lot of juice that night. And then we got behind. But I guess in that, if you go back to that night, I think we led by halftime. So that was really the fourth quarter after we rallied back. But, yeah, there's just these stretches of basketball that aren't particularly good.
Which of the young guys do you see making real progress, knowing that at this time of year it can be a little funky based on who's playing and what lineups are out there, not only for your team but the other team?
So I just think that, Taylor and Keontae are probably the two we're talking about at this point. Bryce is still finding himself a little surprised about his three-point shooting because he was one of the best shooters in the draft, so I figured that'll come around. And Bryce is probably the one who has to go through the biggest evolution from going to being the number one guy to figuring out what kind of role player he is in the NBA. And Taylor and Keontae are just on such different timelines right now of where they are, so their experience is so different. So the answer to your question is unquestionably Taylor, but that's a little bit because Keontae has now, I think, moved into the stage where there's a scouting report on him, and people are playing him differently, and so his next step is now dealing with that, which in turn usually causes you to head the wrong direction for a little while, because now they're scouting you and playing you. They've done enough work to figure out what you're good at and what you're not, and so from there, I think you have, that's where I think so. Keontae is just on a different timeline than Taylor, but Taylor's showing all sorts of signs of exciting things right now.
And top of that list is?
Well, one, I just think his fight, like he actually, I think there was a little question, just this nice soft-spoken kid from Florida, what kind of fight did he have in him? Like, he hadn't been a high-level recruit. He was, Miami and Florida State were inches, so it wasn't like, he's 6'9", and he can run and jump. He wasn't off the timeline or off the charts, but he hasn't been, that guy. So I think, he started Jimmy Butler, he started Victor, and last night he had Luka and he had Shea for part of the night before. they're just really throwing him out there. You just haven't seen a quit at all out of him. So I think that's really good. And then you've also a ton of plays athletically where he's showing some signs. And then, I thought, like, last night he took a charging foul on it, but a few nights before I saw him put a ball on the deck and 2 dribbles to the basket. And there's a level of offensive players. You're either a no dribble player, a 2 dribble player, or a multiple dribble player. He's certainly not a multiple dribble guy yet, but I didn't know that he had 1 or 2 bounces in him either. So to see that 1 or 2 bounce, I think is really nice progress. So there's been a lot of really good stuff out of Taylor. I think he'll get settled on his shot. It was really flat for a little while. I think he'll get some more arch on it. He'll start going in more. I don't know what that – I mean, this guy's way better than he was earlier this year. I mean, way better. He really, like, training camp he was really having it, from everything I've been told and those that I've seen, and in preseason, I mean, he was really having it handed to him every night. So for him to battle through that, use the G League, get a lot better, and now looks fine out there. It's terrific.
He had a few games early this month that were the rebound numbers were really getting my attention. He was in double figures, 3 games out of 4. Now this month he's also had a couple rebounds where he only had 2 games. And you mentioned that regardless of how skilled or how raw you are in different parts of your game, you're always 6'9", and you're always, as PK likes to say, real bouncy. He likes to go to the scout words, He's 6'9", and he's bouncy. He's got long arms. He's quick. And so you would think, well, this guy could be a pretty good rebounder. And, I mean, once you start doing 10 and 13 rebounds and 3 nights out of 4, I think you're better than a pretty good rebounder. You're a very good rebounder, but that just makes the nights with 2, kind of jump out at you more. And I know he's young, so he ought to be up and down, so I can write some of it off to that. Do you think there's something that's going on? Is there something about those games? Am I missing something here, or is it just purely youth and inexperience, and it's something that as a veteran you learn to even out and be more consistent?
Well, I don't think you're missing anything because you've never missed anything.
That's not true, and you know it.
I think it has to do with who he's guarding.
Okay, he gets totally locked into that and the effort out.
Well, no, but if he's guarding Luka.
Oh, you're talking about distance from the hoop.
Yep. So I think that's the issue.
Okay.
Right. He had Luka, Shea, and Jalen the last 3 nights. His rebound numbers were low. If you go find rebound numbers when he was high, I'll bet you he had Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, Miami, Atlanta, and Minnesota.
So Atlanta, he was probably guarding. He wasn't guarding DeJounte very much, so I don't know who he had, but maybe Jalen Johnson. So then he's rebounding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it has to do with his defensive positioning when the shot goes up.
Got it. So if he's guarding somebody within 15 feet of the hoop, he's got a chance to get some rebound numbers. But if he's got to go match up with somebody up high and he starts ending up in 25 feet from the hoop, it's not going to happen.
That's my thought. That's
okay.
Because I noticed last night I think he had 2, right?
Yeah.
And then I watched a play or 2, and I was like, oh, he's guarding Luka.
Right.
Like, yeah. No wonder.
Right, and you got to pick up Luka beyond the 3-point line, and you're not going to get any rebounds out there to speak of.
I thought he did a really. I literally said on the broadcast last night, "Oh dear, Luka could score 70," because, and I didn't mean it critical of Taylor. Like, if you asked me any player in the NBA guarded by a rookie, who's most likely to annihilate the rookie, my answer is Luka. And so the first 3 or 4 possessions, I was like, "Oh dear, this is really going to be." What's the phrase? Baptism by fire.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the night went on, Taylor got better and better at handling it. I thought that was really encouraging last night. Hey, Luka may have pulled off the gas a tiny bit, but and Luka definitely, had his way early. But Luka should have his way early. Luka's the best offensive player in the NBA. I mean, I understand Jokic has the biggest offensive impact, but so, when that game starts and Luka comes out and, passes a few times, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, I got this rookie on me. So all right, let me hit a 3 and then drive into 9 feet. And then I think he hit another 10-footer and threw a foul on Taylor with his pump fake, and then he drove him back-to-back times for a layup. And you're like, yeah, it's like you're 7 minutes into the quarter and he's got 12 points, and you're like, oh dear, this is going to go. I thought he did. I thought when it came back the second time around, he kind of had settled himself and did a better job on him. I thought that's all you're asking right now. Can you imagine what it's like to go from Shea one night to Luka the next to it's crazy what they're asking Taylor to do. Mama, can I have a break, please? Please, can I have a night off?
That's why you come to the NBA. You sign up. That's what you sign up for. You want to play against the best in the world.
Yeah, you sign up for it, and then it happens.
Yeah, I know, right?
Those are two totally different things.
A little tougher in the middle of it when some dude scored on you 4 straight trips down the court. That's not quite as much fun.
I mean, I've had some moments where I just want to go give Keontae a hug right now, right? Like they're the age of our. You and I are going through the same thing. It's crazy to watch because these guys are the age of our kids.
I did tell somebody we were talking about that, and they said, I'm just seeing that athletes who are turning pro now, it doesn't matter the sport really, they are impossibly young. I literally said that yesterday to somebody, and they're about our age. They're like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, and I don't mean it necessarily, I mean, it certainly makes us feel old, but so my daughter's playing Division I sports right now. Mm-hmm. She's the exact same age as Keontae.
Yep.
I mean, not Keontae, I guess, is a few little older.
Yeah.
It's been wildly interesting for me to literally, and my poor daughter, she's had to deal with this for all 19 years of her life because she's been parented by me for all of them. And I love the deep thoughts and serious conversations, and it seems to be working way better when she's in college and choose when she wants to listen compared to when she's forced to listen. Side note. But I sent her a long text about Keontae the other day. Hey, I'm watching Keontae. Here's what he's going through. Here's where his frustrations are. Here's what you need to learn how to avoid. Because while one's the NBA and one's Division I golf, at least in their worlds, it's pretty similar. Right? Sure, Keontae's going against the best in the world, but my daughter was paired with the number 1 recruit in her recruiting class the other day. My daughter was the 280th recruit in the country. She was not a big recruit in any way, shape, or form. Trust me, there were more days of no phone calls, no letters, no interest than there was of any interest. And she's paired against the number 1 recruit in the country. You're into a different stratosphere. It's a different world. The expectations are different. And then even though you're not actually different, you think you're supposed to be. It's really hard.
I'm intrigued by, let's go to the Jazz guys who are more recruits 280 than recruits 1. Because when we talk about the young guys, we always talk about the guys who are drafted. But there are other players the Jazz are taking a look at, and whether it's a Yurtseven or Johnny Juzang or Potter, or we can pretty much run through the rest of the roster. You know the kind of guys I'm talking about. Are any of them making a mark? Are they displaying they got something? They got one skill, this one skill they're so good at it could impact a game. Is there something there, or are they going to be cycling through those roster spots because they're not finding anything there? What do you think?
So you this was my thought, actually. I was watching last night, very much built off the first comment I just made a moment ago, so we're on the same page here. Micah Potter has just really become a pretty decent player. And Micah Potter was born in 1998, and Keontae George was born in 2003, right? So he's 5 years old. So he's 25 right now. Johnny Juzang was born in 2001. So he's a little younger. He's about 22, 23. And he's a dramatically different player than what we saw. And it made me go run over to Miami, right? So they have that guy Haywood Highsmith. No one ever heard of him. One of their million undrafted players. Well, he's born in 96, right? And and Orlando Robinson, who's their 7-foot center out of Fresno State, who was undrafted, is born in 2000. And they have the two-way player Kane, he's born in 99. Maybe there is something here where your bench players are 25-year-old former G League two-way players who just learn how to get better, but they also learn the very specific skills that are going to work for them to be NBA players.
I think there's something to that. And Kevin O'Connor talked about it a long time ago, that there are players who are good. They're pretty good at doing a lot of things. And he said, that doesn't help you win as many games as you'd like to think. What happens is a guy who isn't very good at some stuff, but this one thing, he can rebound. Okay, this guy can really shoot the three. May not play a lick of D. Whereas a player, and Alex Jensen was the player who brought this up, he says, Alex is pretty good at a lot of stuff. But to make it in the NBA, you have to be great at something.
Okay, I'm going to quibble with you here.
Okay.
So
you're quibbling with Kevin O'Connor, but go ahead.
No, I am, but I was in the same conversations with Kevin all the time, and Gordon Chiesa used to phrase it as when you scout a player, there has to be something that makes the opponent say, "Oh, beep."
Okay, man.
That was the other.
Saying the same thing a different way, right?
Yeah, right. So same concept. I am not sure that's not updated. That the game has changed so much, and you're positionless to some extent now. So that unless you have to be able to dribble, pass, and shoot now. And if you can't dribble, pass, and shoot, you can't play.
Catch
unless
and shoot.
Unless you're 7-1.
Catch and shoot three. Catch and shoot 3-point guy.
Like the Ryan Anderson, right? Remember Ryan Anderson, like the 6'10" wing player who just caught the ball in the corner and shot it? Like that player doesn't exist in our league anymore. That player really doesn't like that's a little bit of like where that's Micah Potter's Ryan Anderson. And maybe he can dribble, pass, and shoot better than I know. I just haven't seen it. He's a delightful young man. I mean, for that reason alone, I would put him on the roster. I mean, he really is just one of the best people. Really just a super like well-rounded, high desire, cool guy. But with that said, I don't know that he can dribble and pass right now. I think he can shoot, and he's fairly big at 6'10". But I'm not like the Ryan Anderson, even the Bruce Bowen. Like that's Ochai. Like I don't know. I'm really concerned about Ochai. Like he can't really dribble and pass, and he now can't shoot. But I'm not sure that even if he can shoot, it's enough. Like there just really aren't that many guys out in the league that are just 3-and-D guys anymore.
David, we're going to have to stop right there. We appreciate the time. We will hear you in Houston Saturday night. Safe travels there.
There was something different about today's show. It was nice and calm and had a good flow to it. What's different today?
You're fun. PK's enjoying a little R&R. He'll be back next week, and he's going to torture you.
Guy.
A double batch of torture now that you've tweaked him while he wasn't here to defend himself. Now you're in trouble.
That guy wasn't there today. Oh, that's what it was. That guy's not here today. Oh, what's his name again?
Stop. Thank you, David.
Bye.
David Locke, radio voice of the Jazz. Scotty G, radio voice of the Aggies, coming up at the top of the hour. RSL's off to Vancouver next. We'll talk with Kurt Schmid. Stay with us right here on The Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
He's coach Tim Lacombe.
Who do you like in the seating? Who do you think has an opportunity to make a run?
It's an interesting one to me this year, but I would have to say that even though Houston got pummeled in that Iowa State game, I think Houston's got to be a team you look at. They've got a decent run. I think at the end of the day, guys, I think UConn wins this thing. I think Bobby Hurley's done a great job assembling a team that can win a lot of different ways. And I just think even though it's going to be difficult, I think that they'll be a team that is there. And I think that even though it's real chalky, and I hate doing chalk, I think that's a team. I think Houston's a team. My outlier this year is Creighton. They're a 3. I kind of like where they're at, and I like the fact that they're old. They've been together for a number of years, and I think that will pay dividends in a kind of a splintered, fractured NCAA where teams have about 8-month experience overall.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK reminding you, don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to see A Day to Remember at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on July 21st. Listen to The Zone all day yesterday for your chance to win. We're joined now by Kurt Schmid. He's the chief soccer officer for Real Salt Lake. Means he's running the front office. Is that exactly what that means, Kurt? Did I just summarize that properly? For a term that people aren't used to knowing exactly what that means?
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Okay. There are a few questions. I understand that you developed a motto, winning through development. What is that? How did that come about? Why did that come about?
Winning together through development. And, it just encompasses a few of the core values and the principles that we embody. And, we want to make sure that we develop. And, that means developing players, but also developing coaches and people and staff. We want to make sure we win, right? And we want to do it in a collaborative way. And so when we're making decisions at the club, we ask ourselves if it serves 1, 2, or 3 of those things. And if it doesn't serve any of them, we're not going to do it.
So what happens when some of those things are in conflict? Because I got asked this, and honestly, I didn't know how to answer it. And I think it came about because people were interested in, like, why is Gavin Beavers starting for Zach McMath? And I understand Beavers is expected to get a certain number of starts. I mean, you never know about health, so I guess everything's up in the air a little bit. But the thought that he'll get 12 or 14 starts or something like that this year, I guess that goes back to winning through development, but you want to win, so you want to start the best guys. So how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, I think Gavin's someone with a lot of potential, and he's a good player now, right? And it's not just playing guys that have potential but aren't good enough at this point. We think that the young guys that we're playing are good enough to impact the game right now. So we don't think those goals are at odds in that situation. We think that we're serving both.
There are a lot of young guys to develop. Diego Luna is young and obviously promising, but he's away with the national team this week. And Andres Gomez is young and developing. Certainly everybody got a taste of what he can do against LAFC. And I think the crowd that weathered that storm, literally, enjoyed what he had to offer in that game. That was an eye-opener. But he's away with his national team. So now what for RSL against Vancouver? What should people expect to see? Or now who?
Well, first, I mean, congrats to Andreas and Diego and Gav and everyone that's getting the opportunity to represent their national teams. That's a massive opportunity, a massive honor, and it's something that we always want to support. And even when it's maybe a little bit at odds with one of our games, but it's still something that we want to support, and we're proud of those guys, and we wish them a ton of success this weekend. For us, it's going to give other guys opportunities. And, you hear stuff like next man up mentality and things like that. And, that's part of it. But we also think we have some good young players that haven't played as many minutes. And, they're going to get an opportunity to go play and show what they can do. So we're excited to see that.
What have you seen from Fidel Barajas? He's 17 years old. I've heard about what he's been able to do. We've seen a little bit of it. What are your expectations for him, and what should fans expect? Because whether he starts or comes in as a sub, I expect, given the way the roster looks this weekend, he's going to play. The question is when and how much.
He's a really talented young player, right? He's got a great left foot. He can beat guys off the dribble 1v1. He sees the game really well. He can create with his passing. He can finish in the box. He's obviously not the finished product yet. He's still a young kid, but he's got some really, really good starting points. And the more we expose him to this environment, the more he's going to learn, the faster he's going to learn and adapt and become, closer to that finished product. So we're excited to see what he can do. We're happy we've gotten him in some games already. I think he'll probably get more time in this one, as you alluded to. And so we'll see how it goes. But we're really excited to see him go and think he's going to do some good things.
I don't understand with the impact that academies are having on player development. There's so many clubs now that have academies, so they're bringing guys in. In other sports, kids are in travel teams and they're in their high school program, and then they're probably in college in most sports, maybe not in baseball, and then they're in the pros. But here, kids are in a fairly, even if they're not professionals, they're in a fairly professional environment at 14, 15, 16 years old. And yet we're seeing some of these kids leave those academies and go to the USL and kind of leave that structure. And you found a couple of good young players, Diego Luna and Fidel Barajas there. How do guys with that much talent end up essentially free agents when everyone's trying to develop young talent and they're off in the USL with some club that is unaligned usually with the MLS and the traditional development system?
Yeah, I think USL's, trying to find a little niche or a market inefficiency where they can poach some talented young players and be a bridge for them to achieving their goals, where maybe the club that they're at right now isn't facilitating that as quickly as they would like. So, they've stepped in, different teams have tried to step in and give those guys that opportunity. It's actually not maybe the best thing for every kid to pursue that opportunity. It's not every kid can step in at 16, 17, 18, 19 years old and succeed at that level right away. But for those that can, and they feel that they want to take that step in that a little bit of a risk, right? Stepping outside of your comfort zone and your home environment, it can be really rewarding for them. And for us, as we're scouting, it's just another really, really good data point where we see what they can do against more physically mature competition, more mentally mature competition, and it gives us a read into what we think they can do at the MLS level. And so I think for us, we look at it and how do we give our guys those opportunities here so that they don't need that, right? But when we look at other clubs that are doing it, we can use a little bit of marketing efficiency ourselves.
RSL's at Vancouver this week. Pregame at 4:30 here on the Zone on Saturday. First kick 5:30 Saturday night. Vancouver, historically, the numbers say that Vancouver, Colorado, San Jose have a hard time making the playoffs. That's usually a place you got to try to pick up points when you're playing one of those teams. But Vancouver this year with a pair of road wins, 7 points in their first 9 games. What are they doing so well? Because there's no doubt about it, through 3 games, this is a good start for them.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's part of it is that it's so early. Like nobody knows exactly what anybody else is quite yet. It's early in the season. Teams are still figuring themselves out, figuring the opponents out. It's tough to know exactly what everyone's got going. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take away a good start for them. The saying goes, 3 points in March are as good as 3 points in September. So you take them when you can get them, and that's what we'll be looking to do.
How often do you go on the road, and how often are you out because you're responsible for scouting? You could be at another game also looking at young talent, thinking about the summer window or the next transfer window. How often do you go on road trips with the team, and how often are you off seeing somebody else somewhere else?
It's a pretty good split. I mean, these days I've got a good staff with me with Luke Mulholland and Dr. Joe Thomas that do some traveling that I don't need to do, and so they can cover ground and help us expand our reach. And then I come in maybe a little bit later in the process than I have in the past. But I try to go as much as possible to watch us play because obviously scouting is it's sort of a two-pronged thing. We need to go find the prospective players, but we also need to know what we have and what we need. And so it's important to be incredibly obviously familiar with both sides of it. And so we want to watch our guys in training. We got to watch them in games as well and see, in person what it looks like. And that helps refine the vision of what we need and how we make it better.
Yeah. I would definitely go on the Vancouver trip just because I love Vancouver. I'd never been to Vancouver. Yeah. That's an underrated city.
It is a nice city. Yeah. Pacific Northwest. I lived there for a little bit. It's a nice place.
Yeah. But you're partial to Seattle.
Exactly. Very green up there, but very wet.
Yeah. And it's an early season trip. I have to say I was on Vancouver trips in July and August, and I get the brief window of summer and get Vancouver at its best. That was awesome up there.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think as you analyze your team? And I know it is early, so everybody you get new information. You get to have a new opinion, and you may have a new opinion in a month or 6 weeks or whatever. But early on, when you look at the summer transfer window, are there any things you're sizing up, thinking maybe in this area a little help would be a good idea?
There's a couple things we're looking at in terms of improving competition and depth within the squad. In both the attacking and the defensive side, I think, improvement, competition is always critical for a team. It's what keeps everyone sharp and honestly spurs that development that we're striving for. But I've been really happy with how the team's played and how they're adapting to what is essentially a bit of a new style and a bit of a new system, and how we're adjusting to those things. The young players coming along, you talked about Andres and his game in LSD, and obviously we know what Diego Luna can do, and Chicho, and seeing Matt Crooks integrated in the team. So I'm pretty happy with how things have gone, and I think we're keeping our eyes peeled and are trying to be nimble and able to adapt to anything that comes up or any circumstances that change. But in the meantime, we are looking for a little bit of competition in both the attacking end, kind of the attacking midfield area and maybe the back line.
I talked to Matt Crooks this week for the first time, and his backstory is so interesting. He's working with a couple of foundations, one because his best friend was killed when he was 25 years old, and he works with a foundation on behalf of his friend's memory. They got a circle of friends there. He works with groups that support people who have epilepsy because he does. His dad played in the Deaf Olympics and represented England there. He's 30, so he's not a young guy, but he's young to me because 30's way in my rearview mirror. And it seems like he has been through a lot, but it leads to him. You're talking to him, and he's got the accent and all that. And I had to listen close to really get it, but you could really hear the emotion in his voice. He's I love the stories about sports at this point, and he's had many stories in 30 years.
Yeah, it's a pretty varied and certainly interesting and incredible, backstory that he has. And, I think it's all come together to make him the person that he is today, right? And I think he's a pretty incredible person. So, it's a good reminder that as we're out there in the world, scouting and looking for players and, finding someone that is talented on the field is obviously very important, but finding the right people to integrate not just into the locker room, but into the club and into the community is also really, really critical and adds a lot to what we're trying to do here.
Well, the thing I got from him is the empathy he has for other people's stories and what they may have been through. And he mentioned that he went to the club website and read the profile on Andres Gomez, and he was reflecting on what an incredible journey for Andres Gomez and all the things he went through. And that's really new. He said, in North America, you see a lot of players from South America, but in England, he didn't really get exposed to that. And he had just read it and was pretty blown away by Gomez's story. So everybody's got a backstory.
Yeah. Did you read it? It was.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I knew exactly what he was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and just it was to listen to what the adversity that Andres had to push through, and it's crazy. It almost seems random sometimes, the set of circumstances that kind of contrive or come together to make things happen for someone like that. And obviously, I think he's on the right track, and I'm sure he's happy with how things are going so far, and we're happy with him as a player and a person. And but it's incredible when you read how he got to this point.
Yeah. All right, well, we will let you go. Go get a drink of water and heal that throat right there, Kurt. And we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy Vancouver.
I appreciate it.
All right, there's Kurt Schmid from the RSL front office. When we come back, top of the hour, we're going to talk Aggie basketball. NCAA tournament game tonight. Scotty G, can the Aggies end their personal 23-year dry streak here without going around to 32? And can they end the state streak that is now at 8 years and growing? We were really spoiled by awesome college basketball for a long time. Been a little less than awesome here lately. Will someone break through? It's the Aggies' turn to take a swing and see if they can do it. We'll find out. We'll talk with Scotty. Game's coming up at 8 o'clock tonight right here on The Zone. Scotty G joins us at the top of the hour.
Now let's get this party started.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
This story is crazy about becoming an ultimate Aggie, which apparently is getting up on that bull naked. What bull is it? Is it the one that's by the Estes Center? Isn't that bull like bucking? I'm just wondering how 5 nude men could fit on that.
That's a big bull.
5 nude men could fit on that?
5 smaller men, probably could make that work. There you go. That's the size of the thing right there.
Okay, it's not bucking. You could probably fit upwards of 10 naked men on that. So in order for you to be the ultimate Aggie, you have to be naked?
Yes.
I did not know that this was a thing.
See, I would think if you were going to be an ultimate Aggie, that it needs to be solo.
Because these 5 were not solo.
And that's where a lot of guys up at Utah State are like, hey, let's maybe dial that down a little bit.
Easy. One ultimate Aggie at a time.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union.
DJ and PK, question of the morning. BYU basketball fans, what do you have to say for yourselves now? And people are taking this and going every direction. Some people are just offended by the question. Some people are taking this as an opportunity to praise their team and build hope for the future, which could well be how things turn out. These people could be spot on. There are other people crying and gnashing their teeth. The fates of college basketball, another first-round loss. They feel the pain, and I think that's exactly where the coach and the team are right now. I thought Mark Pope was brutally honest, and I appreciate it 100%. I think if he had tried to come out and spray sunshine, and he's a pretty positive, upbeat guy, it would have fallen with a thud. Because I thought that was a big old gut punch of a loss. And I really was curious what they would say when they came to the podium. And across the board, and in this case that means 2 players and 1 coach, but across the board, the 3 of them, basically the message was it was a gut punch. Mark Pope used the word devastating multiple times. I think as well he should have. I think that's a fair word. I think there's just no way. When I was sitting here yesterday talking about the game, expectations, what could go right, what could go wrong, what should go right and what could go wrong based on what we'd seen. No way did I think BYU would get shut out for the first 5 minutes of the game. This is why I don't gamble. I know what I don't know, and I know don't know a bunch of stuff, and there was no way that I knew BYU was going to get shut out for 5 minutes to start that game, and it'd be a 9-0 hole. And the second half was only marginally better. They had 4 points after 5 minutes, which is not enough. And they got 2 of those at like 15-12. And basically they came out of the locker room and just stumbled right away. And I appreciated Jay Drew not spraying sunshine and going right up there like a veteran trained professional it is and saying, well, what happened with the bad starts? And I thought the answer was honest. I don't know. Because if they knew, they would have fixed it. Sometimes in retrospect, you can say, hey, this went wrong and we should have been better at this. But I just think it was across the board. Some of you are going to go to body language. You're not wrong. Some of you are going to go to the way the ball moved. You're not necessarily wrong. The shots that were taken, could they have gone? Should they have gone? It's 5 brutal minutes. I think, and you can sit here and parse and list a bunch of things, but if I just want to go right to number 1, when I see a team perform like that, and I've seen them play 30 times, we've all seen them play. I mean, you haven't seen them 30, you've seen them 20 or 25 times. You didn't see every minute, every game, fine. We know who BYU is and what they're capable of. They didn't deliver on what they're capable of. They missed it by a wide mark. And I think it goes back to expectation. I don't see how it goes to anything other than expectation, grit, pressure, all of those things. And just don't think it's a schematic X and O or talent thing. They have more size. They have more offensive skill. They should have been able to make it work. And Duquesne got physical with them and took a bunch of guys out of the game. And, you know, when 3 key players are out there going 5 of 21 combined, Waterman, Khalifa, and Traore. And we've seen all these guys deliver at different times, and I don't expect them all to be on. To one degree or another, they've all been up or down, injuries or how they performed. They haven't always been on every night. But to have all 3 of them struggle in the same game, well, if you'd known that, if I told you that was going to happen yesterday morning, the poll question we ran where 85% of you thought BYU was going to win, and I'm with you, I thought they were going to win too, we all would answer that differently if we'd known, wow, those 3 guys who've delivered for most of the year aren't going to. And they weren't the only guys who struggled. I mean, Nell only scored 2 points. You know, they needed buckets, and Robinson brought it. You got a tip of the cap to him, 25 points on 8 of 15 shooting. A couple more guys play like that, and the other guys are off the hook, and they're through to the round of 32.
They needed one other guy to go with him, and they couldn't get it.
Right. Hall and Johnson had 11 apiece, and Johnson had 16 boards. But there were missed threes carrying all over the place. All right, DJ and PK, when we come back, BYU couldn't get the win. Nobody in the state has won in the NCAA tournament and advanced to the round of 32 since the Utes did it in 2016. Will the Aggies do it tonight? Scotty G next.